get underway. And you've started the live stream. That's fine. I can get that off my screen. Got it. That's fine. Very well. What apologies do we have, Dave and Garth?
Okay, good morning, everybody. We have apologies from Harsha Shukla, Lisa Fenton, Joanne Harris, and Helen Sage, I think, is here now, but may need to leave. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Helen. Yes, I noticed that something had come in from you, and so I was quite surprised to see you here with us. Thank you, Helen, for being with us. Right. We have minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of November. And our first task in looking at that minute is simply to check that if you were in attendance at that meeting, then your name is properly recorded. If you apologized, your apology is properly recorded. Thank you. I'm recorded in process. That's fine. In progress. That's fine. So is there anything to change in respect of the minute? So can we accept the minutes of that meeting, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Kathleen. Right, thank you, John, for proposing that. There are three matters that I just want to raise from that minute, which aren't on the agenda for today, or not properly on the agenda today. Under item 7, it mentioned funding for Academies letter, that a letter would be sent out to all academies in Lancashire, making it clear that the agreed syllabus was available free to them at no charge. And that letter has been sent, hasn't it, Alison?
Yes.
Yes, that's right. At item 11, we've been engaged with the NASUWT, who have put forward a new member for the Sacre, who I had quite expected to be in attendance with us this morning, but she's not yet on my screen. But her name is Charlotte Watson, working in a Burnley school. And the third item, to which we shall need to return in respect of a future agenda, Ahmed James, who now is one of the representatives of Islam on the Sacre, volunteered on a future session to speak to us about Afrocentrism of Islam, and that is something that we must keep in mind, rather than just think, oh, that was in the minutes months back, but nobody's done anything about it.
Important.
So it is important that we should come to that if we possibly can.
Peter, would you like me to liaise with Ahmed about fixing a date?
That would be very helpful. I wondered, perhaps I need to speak with Alison as well about this, but I wondered if we might put that on the agenda for the 25th of April meeting, which is our next full meeting.
Okay, yes, I'll leave that with me.
And suggest that, when previously we've had presentations to the Sacre, we wouldn't want something which took forever, but I would have thought that something 20 to 25 minutes with then the opportunity for questions should be able to give us really quite a meaty item. Does that sound sensible, colleagues? What do you?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Okay. Thank you. If you could liaise, then that would be helpful.
That's fine, Peter.
It may be that he will join the meeting later this morning, but I just thought I would raise that from those minutes now. And then we move to the...
Peter,
yeah.
May I just say, my apologies for not sending in my apologies for last meeting. The previous day, I'd been stuck near T-Bay, somewhere east of T-Bay, in a snowdrift, having been hedge laying, and had to wait for a snowplow to rescue me. When I got back, it was very late. I was also exhausted and slept through till about midday, so many apologies.
Right, okay. Thank you, Francis. Well, we're glad you got out of the snowdrift. Yes, one of the risks of British weather that we have to contend with. Right, the RE report, update report, which Alison has prepared for us. Alison, would you like to lead us through this?
I can do. It's I'm just going to talk through what I've written, but
Yeah, okay.
we have. I've just updated you on the training we've planned and are doing this term. On the 25th of February, we're providing training to the Yarrow Schools Teaching Alliance, which is around Chorley Way. There are 30 schools in that Teaching Alliance. On the 25th of March, we're providing training to all the trainee teachers who are on the SKIP programme. That's school-based teacher training, and that will be in Skelmersdale. And then we have planned training for all schools on assessment, and we're producing some new materials to support schools in forming assessment judgments before they submit their data to yourselves. So that's now advertised on LPDS. There's something for Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. So that's sorted.
And that's going to be on the 25th of May, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yep, which is a Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Let's hope that schools are sufficiently proactive in booking that time for their staff so that they really can make good use of that training opportunity. Okay.
The Sacra annual report, the QSS signed that off. That's now been submitted. I got an acknowledgement from the DFE about that and the Sacra, and it's on the Sacra site now, so that job's done. The newsletter is attached. I think you've had that in your papers.
Yes.
One of the key things that we are in the process of doing is surveying our special schools, because I am aware that the syllabus for Key Stage 3 doesn't really meet the requirements of pupils in special schools who are of secondary age. So that's a big job. So I've surveyed all the schools that special schools that use our syllabus. That's from all the other authorities as well. They are submitting their feelings by Friday, and then we plan to commission ourselves and RE Today together to actually perhaps, and I don't know whether we need an ASC for this or not, but to write some additional units at Key Stage 3 to meet the needs of pupils at special school, because their approach is different. If they've come from primary school, then they will have used all the primary units, you see, and all the early years units already, if they've gone and taken that approach and tweaked those. So they've nothing left to use, really. So we're in the process of doing that.
In respect to that, Alison, we have such a range of special schools, and the needs of different schools will be very different. And the depth of knowledge or depth of study that's appropriate would differ considerably. I wonder if there's anything to be gained from trying to learn from head teachers of special schools, if any of them do have RE specialists within on their staff who might be prepared to contribute to some small working group, or at least submit material they currently use, so that we can find somebody who is a practitioner in the field, or practitioners in the field, who can really set things in context for us.
Well, that's a good idea. After the survey, I can ask. I think part of the problem is that they haven't, and that's why they're stuck. Yes. However, after we've had a look at what they've said on Friday, because I know quite a few have submitted, then we can have a look and plough a way forward from that. But whatever we do won't be, because it's a big job actually, so it won't be, it'll be a summer holiday job, so it'll be ready for September.
I'm not suggesting that this is something that we could snap our fingers.
No.
But it's a question of starting somewhere on this task, yes. Okay.
other than that,
Oh, Helen
Oh,
Sage was
sorry,
about to say something.
sorry.
Sorry, may I just draw her in, Alison, before you continue? Helen.
Can I just commend Alison for taking on this really essential area of work, because I know it won't be easy, Alison. I appreciate it. It's like dealing with the Key Stage 5 as well. It's looking for good practice out there. It's making it acceptable to those who are non-specialists. It's actually gathering up the information, as Peter quite rightly says, and you point out that the need is there because the non-specialists may evidentially at the moment, anecdotally rather, the evidence isn't there that there are specialists out there in the field, but there are often enthusiastic non-specialists out there, and you want to harness them as part of what you do to take forward. You can't go to an off the shelf. You can't. It has to be bespoke. And that's always been the strength of the Lancashire Agreed syllabus. I applaud the fact that you wish to draw in such as RE today to help you with this. However, I would hope that it wouldn't lose sight, because that is a national body. You have to view them as a national provider, and that it's really important that the materials are what your special schools really want. So having that engagement with them, having them as part of your working party and your critical reflection and your testing out those materials, I see just as key as going forward, and a much more multi-sensory approach I've found to work when I've been working with the special schools in another local authority. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate that this is an uphill task and will take a lot longer. And I would think that we'd need to check out, wouldn't we, Chair, about whether or not we'd have to have another agreed syllabus conference for that.
Yeah.
You may, but I can't quite put my finger on it all. But that was my comment. And with that, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave. But I did want to actually input on that item, and I thank you for drawing me in.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Have a good meeting, everyone.
Thank you. John.
Bye-bye.
John, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I was just going to say, I don't think you need another agreed syllabus conference for that, because they're following the syllabus. The agreed syllabus conference provides a syllabus agreed by Sacra and the local authority, and this is within the remit.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments for the moment? No. Okay. Thank you, Alison. Right, we can continue with your report.
Yes, we've produced a suite now of resources to support subject leaders. We've got the pupil voice monitoring tool that QSS had a look at and you had a look at. We've got now a quality of education evaluation pro forma, which I could share maybe at the next QSS or something, which enables a subject leader to evaluate their monitoring and to ask themselves, is the quality of education in RE good enough? Then we've got our policy document and also our website evaluation tool, which we are planning to tweak. So we're building up those resources for subject leaders, which was on our development plan. I've just said about the QSS amending and the Sacra website evaluation tool, because I know that a few members had a go, didn't they? Kathleen and a few other people had a go at using that. I know Malcolm Craig did. I can't remember who else. And after that, it was a useful exercise. And I think John suggested that we could create our own and tweak it, because there were some good things in it and some things that perhaps didn't work quite as well. And so that's really, the only other thing I need to say is that in the past, because I was looking at how you monitor RE as a body, and in the past, in the good old days, before the Ofsted evaluation schedule changed, I used to provide, didn't I, an overview of the inspections and the comments on religious education. Then the evaluation schedule changed, and I just went through the same process, which is on the bottom of your report. And I looked at all of the schools that would use our syllabus, the voluntary controlled and community schools. And I couldn't find one school that had a deep dive for RE to begin with. So there was no specific comment about RE. There was a scattering of comments about British values, but inspectors now don't have to comment on the whole evaluation schedule like they used to. So some of the reports don't even mention British values. So as an exercise, I don't know how useful it was. I could keep looking at it every time to check if there has been a deep dive in RE. But I just put that on the bottom just for your information, really.
I think, in a sense, my view is that it's valuable in that it shows what isn't there. And your statement that the quality of religious education is not mentioned in any report is, in a sense, quite damning of Ofsted, isn't it?
Well, they choose subjects for deep dives.
Of course. They do.
But RE hasn't been one of them. I'm not so sure, maybe because there isn't a national curriculum for RE, perhaps it's a subject that inspectors don't feel as confident in themselves. I don't know.
Well, I just wonder whether as a Sacra, we ought to be writing to Ofsted, simply saying we note this is the situation and we are concerned that religious education may be being sidelined because it is there as a requirement of every school's curriculum.
Halton did have a deep dive into RE. I think it was in one of their more vulnerable schools, and because they use our syllabus, the inspector said that the syllabus didn't meet the national RE curriculum. And so Mark said to him, well, there isn't one, at which stage that he backed down because there wasn't one. But as it turned out, I think it was quite a vulnerable school anyhow. But so that they ended up having a bit of a to-do, I think, about it. But that's the only RE deep dive that has come my way that I know of people who've used our syllabus.
Well, it also tells you that sometimes the inspectors don't really know what they're talking about.
Anyhow, it was interesting for me just to look at what judgment schools had got. But,
Kathleen, you wanted to make an observation.
It was only just in line with the investigation that we did into schools, perhaps because Ofsted aren't placing very little importance on RE, maybe that's sort of being translated into what's happening in the schools, because we had concerns about the RE and what was being taught and how it was being taught, the investigation that we did. And could it be that what Ofsted are looking for is sort of translating into what the schools are doing? I don't know.
I think that's probably very true, Kathleen, that Ofsted is the grand arbiter, if you will,
of the driving force.
Yes.
Shouldn't be.
Right.
There we are. So thank you, Peter.
Any other comments about that? No, Alison, I thought that this was helpful, simply showing what wasn't there as much as what was there. And I realise that it's quite a big task to draw this together, though presumably some of your colleagues are able to contribute to this, are they? Or is this a solo performance by you?
No, it's a solo performance, I'm afraid.
Well, then you are to be heartily commended for all that you've managed to draw together.
It's a very boring exercise, I must admit.
Well,
you can't sleep. It's I want to do that.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think that it would be of value to write to Ofsted and say that you, as officer, have trawled through all these things, and the Sacre took note that RE was mentioned in none of the reports?
I don't think the schools in Lancashire would thank me for that, to be honest.
Well,
I don't know. I don't think if there was something, it wouldn't come from me. I don't think, as an LA officer. I don't know how the other LA officers would view me doing that, to be honest. But it is interesting nationally. It might be a good place to ask at the Northwest Hub. Well, the Northwest Hub meeting, how many deep dives there have been across the Northwest, and perhaps the letter could come from them.
From that group, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Because then we will have a much wider picture than just, Lancashire is a big authority, but when you add to that all the other authorities with whom we meet in the Northwest Hub, then we're talking of thousands of schools and therefore hundreds of inspections. And it would be interesting to see what comes of it. John, you wish to say something?
Yes, I just wonder if this is something that Sacra might take up with the DFE and Ofsted.
Yes, we can ask them if they might do that, because it's certainly at the present time. I think it's regrettable that they're not taking any notice of RE in their inspection comments at all. Alison.
I've just thought of something actually. It was just seeing Joan on screen there that prompted me. I haven't looked at the SIAMS reports for voluntary controlled schools, because the voluntary controlled school would get a SIAMS inspection, and there would be an expectation that they would use the locally agreed syllabus unless parents had decided against it.
Yes.
So there would be an evaluation of our syllabus probably. So what I could do is also look at SIAMS reports for the voluntary controlled schools. I don't know.
Yes.
What do you think, Joan?
I think that might be a valuable exercise, to be honest. I could liaise with the officer over in Liverpool, for example, about his opinion of it. But you get a deeper view of the RE in controlled schools. I think so.
So they have to make a judgment on the quality of RE. And of course, the voluntary controlled school would use our syllabus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That might be more helpful. I don't know.
And Lancashire doesn't have very many voluntary controlled schools. It has a large number of voluntary aided, but relatively few voluntary controlled schools.
Yes.
Yes. So we're fortunate. Righty-ho. Okay, well, thank you. Can we receive that report? Any further questions about Alison's report? Righty-ho. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Saccharine Newsletter. And I'd like to thank Alison for getting this together, because the nice, colourful newsletter has a lot of stuff. Are you going to take us through this, Alison? Some of it will be repeating.
I wasn't going to. I was just going to.
I just wanted to draw people's attention. I like with meetings, as far as possible, to keep them acronym free. And we've got a problem from the start of our meetings in that the Sacre is an acronym. But I noticed on page 2, you've got WAGGLE, and I had to look up WAGGLE.
What a good one looks like.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was about to interpret that for the new converts, as it were, because acronyms can be the death of meetings if we're not careful. It doesn't. You find people nodding when they don't understand, and so I thought we'd better perhaps explain that. But yeah, that's helpful. Yes, much of it is reinforcing the information that you've already given us in your Sacre update report. So we move to the Sacre Development Plan 21 to 23, which is our next item. And, right. Okay. And I think, Alison, it is really for you to lead us through, is it?
Well, the first thing to say, which is separate to this, is that you know that there was a revised format for the annual report.
Yep.
Well, Sacra have also produced a new evaluation tool, and I thought in the summer term we could share that, just for you to look at it. But all I've done here is just highlighted in green the actual things that we've done, and any prep work I've put in yellow on the edge. So I didn't feel we could highlight it in green, but I've done some work on it and it's in yellow on the edge. We haven't, in terms of monitoring, we can't evaluate the success criteria unless we've actually done some monitoring on that particular thing. So we we haven't done that. So that's a discussion really as to how we could monitor these things. And I know at the end of the year we do the survey for schools, don't we? And that would be one of the key ways that we would monitor.
Yep.
But it's over to you really, just to
under 1.1 you have in yellow a selection of school websites monitored by Sacra members. Now some of that has already been done, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So that in effect could now become green, couldn't it?
Sorry, which one are you on? 1.1?
On 1.1.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was because we didn't do very many, and there was only a handful of people, so I did it yellow, but I could do it green. Yes.
Yeah. At least we've begun that work.
Yeah.
And if we move through this, there are certain things that we can't do at the present time. For example, 1.3, it mentions findings of the 2021 census are shared with the Sacre. Well, we don't know when the census data is going to be published, do we? Or do we?
Somebody said to me it was going to be March, but I don't know whether that's right or not.
Dave, you might have some information on that, but I don't know whether any other members might have information on it. No.
I think Anne's trying to say something.
So Anne is trying to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think they give us a sort of an overview before details become totally available of perhaps of what we're seeking, like how many people have died since the last census or something like that, which is a very jolly statistic. But I think that I did hear something similar on the radio, that there would be some information released, but it would only be a broad outlook. You won't get any further information at this time.
No, well, therefore that's something. I mean, in our dates, we've got that task to be undertaken by July of this year. So we'll just have to wait and see whether the findings are out for us to discuss them by July of this year. And Alison, in 1.4, you've got in yellow, schools are aware that attainment data will be collected this year. Information has been sent out to schools telling them that, hasn't it?
Yes.
So in effect, that's now a green item, isn't it?
Well, I didn't green the actions because we hadn't actually done the training yet.
Right.
So, but yes, we're well on with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And under 1.6, you've got a yellow entry in the evaluation side, the SEND survey being sent out. So we wait to see what the response is to the SEND survey.
Yes.
Right, okay. Now, I'm just looking at 2.2, Sacre agreeing how to respond when a school is identified as not meeting its statutory responsibilities. Well, and completed by April 22. Because they're not meeting its statutory responsibilities, is it for the Sacra to say that that's the case, or is that a response to an Ofsted finding?
I think the Sacra have some letters and an approach, so maybe the QSS could look at that.
Right.
And we could do some work to see what's out there and what other people are doing. I mean, it's on there, I guess, following the range of monitoring that you do. So you wouldn't actually know that unless you had a robust monitoring program in place.
Yep. Okay.
Because you can't just look at a school's website and then decide that the quality of RE education isn't good enough. You need to actually, dig
a good deal deeper.
Look at the curriculum and see what's being taught and how well it's being taught. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important, Chairman, just to remember that within the primary school sector anyway, that they do, the head and staff of their particular schools do sort of set out what I call project weeks. I mean, last week at my school, it was religious education and putting in visits to various establishments and having people in. So there was that was called our religious education week. And about 2 weeks before that, we had a scientific week. And we didn't blow up, and we decided not to blow up the school. But I mean, these are the sort of things that I think are sort of happen internally within the school setup, and when they can put things into place. And most probably now schools have got a little bit more relaxation and to get certain things in place for school visits or whatever it might be, or persons coming in. So I think most probably it's been a strange year really for, particularly in the primary sector, looking after and making sure everybody's safe. But I think now there seems to be a little bit more activity taking place, and certainly I think that is something just to watch cautiously on that and see what we can find out.
Right, okay, thank you. Any other comments? Right.
Peter,
Yes.
sorry, I've got my hand up. I have put
Right.
it in the chat.
Sorry.
Yeah, just once again, I think this is just me because I'm relatively new. Do you actually, because you're talking about, you know, members here having responsibility of bit of scrutiny around the syllabus in schools. So do Sacre members receive training on this and for audit in schools on the syllabus? And secondly, are a number of schools allocated to members of the Sacre?
No, we don't allocate
So how
members of schools to, but Alison, would you like to comment about this inquiry from Noida?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, if she wants to do it outside of this meeting, I'm happy for that, but yeah.
Well, we've always tried to build a very positive relationship with schools, and we've never taken an audit approach. Because that would go down like a lead balloon, I think. So what we have done in the past is we've, with my help, selected schools that wanted to share, first of all, good practice. And I think that that's where we are at the minute, identifying some good practice. And volunteers from the Sacra have then gone into that school to actually get a feel for what's happening with some questions. And we have got a policy, haven't we now, that we agreed about, it was like terms of reference for somebody who did that. So, you know, how to behave, the sorts of questions to ask. And John was key in creating that. And we scrutinise by collecting the attainment data in, by looking at the Ofsted reports, but we don't do an Ofsted style evaluation because I don't think that, one, we're qualified to do that, and two, it would actually be very welcome, especially at the moment, because schools still have vast numbers of staffing absences. I mean, my schools at the minute are struggling greatly. I mean, there are senior staff off, teachers off. Some schools are just running on supply teachers, and some schools have bubbles home. So I think school visits at the minute is a bit of a no-no, because I think that some of the heads would go completely hysterical at the thought of that at the moment. But I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think probably it's my wording of the question was possibly wrong. It wasn't around audit per se or to do with Ofsted. I think it was just our role as Sacre, because having been attending a couple of meetings now, at least 3, I'm continually hearing that our school's following the syllabus. How do we do that? We need to ensure that. So I'm just asking, what is the tool and what is the mechanism that Sacre are using to, you know, just to you know, how do you check that? What is the checks?
That's a very good question, Noida.
Yeah.
And I think to set in context what in the past has been able to happen is that by consent, schools have had a visit from a group of Sacre members, perhaps 2 or 3, at an agreed date. not in a visit which is a form of inspection, but is a
No.
form of visitation, if you will, where the school is able to share with Sacra members what it thinks is good practice in its school. And it's obvious that under current circumstances, that's simply not going to be possible. I heard of a school this morning which has 20 staff off at the present time. And so it may be sometime in the future before we're able to physically go out and visit schools. In the meantime, we are reliant on data that the Sacre in general collects and presents to its meetings. And so, for example, the survey of stuff from in respect of special educational needs and disabilities, which has gone out to schools, as and when we get appropriate responses from that, that will be data that the Sacre as a group looks at and is able to form some judgments, which you could use the word evaluation. Alison.
Under 2.2 in the development plan, there's a list of things that Sacra does to monitor RE. In terms of collecting attainment data, there is no statutory requirement, I don't think, for schools to do that. So it's all very dubious. And I know that the role of Sacra in monitoring is a national discussion, isn't it, always? And that's why building a good relationships with schools is so important. Because if a school said, well, no, you're not coming in, you're not going in. But those are the range of things that we typically have done to gather feedback from schools.
Nuida, are you a school governor?
I am at Longsand School, which had a good Ofsted rating recently.
Simply, there will be questions that you can sensibly ask at governors' meetings, and of the staff responsible for RE in your school, which will reinforce your role as a governor and will inform you about this general subject area and the way in which your school is operating, and be able and make more of a contribution, if you will, to your general knowledge of the way in which the Sacre works, I think, and bring stuff back to the Sacre, because there will be many Sacre members who are school governors, and that's just another way in which they can exercise a wing of their role, if you like, and bring stuff back to share with other Sacre members from your school.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks to you, Alison, for that.
Right. What I'm just looking at what else we need to look at on here. We have shared the collective worship policy and guidelines. And you've asked for exemplars of good practice. So any other comments, Alison, on the development plan? Do other colleagues, other members? John, you have a question.
Yes, under 2.3, the Youth Voice. I know Youth Voice events have not been held, but I think, am I right, Alison, that you and Helen and perhaps others have started to draft means of getting hold of Youth Voice on
well, we've drafted a document that subject leaders can use to gather information from their own schools. I was thinking that when we did the annual survey, at the end of the year, we could do one for pupils as well at the same time.
I think the pupils would love that, because I think where they do have what they call their ethos groups, and particularly with the schools that I'm connected with, and most of these meet at lunchtime, but I think they will welcome that survey, and I think we might get some very interesting information. My little primary school is desperate. They thought they were going to come and meet you all, but that's not happened yet. We were going to go back to them. But I just think they like the idea that people are taking an interest in how that they are tying up the religious education in line with their own behaviour and the British values, which is what was mentioned earlier. So I think it's quite interesting how children are looking at these questions as opposed to us in our senior moments.
Yep. Any other comments about the development plan at the moment? Right. Okay, so we can move forward to the next item on the agenda, which is observers' contributions. And I'm just wondering whether we have any observers with us. Oh, yeah, Keith, I'm sorry, you are indeed with us this morning. Keith.
Yeah, I can't really comment too much at the moment. I've just been having some communication with Dave because I have not been getting all the documents. So you've been having a discussion and I've been trying to catch up after he sent them to me.
Right.
So hopefully he's going to add me to whatever mailing list, means that I will always get the minutes and the documents, so I have a chance to look at them before the meeting.
Certainly, because that should be happening, and it will have perhaps slipped between cup and lip because Dave is currently covering the role of clerk to the Sacra.
Yeah, I wonder if there's two lists, you know, because I get the list, I get the linked meeting, I get that email to me, but I don't get the
Right.
minutes and the other documents.
Well, as I said to Dave when he took over this role, that Sacra will be quite a steep learning curve, and I think that Alison would endorse that was her experience a number of years ago. Would you say that was true, Alison? Yeah.
I'll certainly look into it and make sure that Keith receives everything.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Are there any items of members' news to share this morning? I'm looking and can see nobody raising a hand under the present circumstances. And any items of correspondence? We have something that came from Birmingham, which is shared with you. That is the school visits to places of worship in Birmingham, resources for schools. That I would encourage you to share with anybody whom you know working in schools at the present time. Alison, is this something that has been shared with schools already?
The Birmingham thing?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. This was just an example of what they're doing down there, really, in terms of, it was just flying kites, really, in terms of what they've done in Birmingham. They've taken different places of worship and produced informations and quizzes and worksheets and things to support schools when they visit. And I know that's something that Building Bridges are doing with us, but in terms of the city of Preston, I don't know. It was just, I thought it was interesting. That's where it came from, really.
Yep. Is this stuff which is free access?
Yes.
Yep.
I think if you go on the website, I think you can get resources for schools from the website, but I must admit I haven't spent hours on this. So
no, I just wondered whether we ought to share it with Lancashire schools, because whilst they may not be local places of worship, it's still an example of places of worship which could be a useful resource, and not least the guide and quiz online.
Yes, yeah.
So perhaps that's something to add to the next newsletter, is it?
Yes, good idea. I'll have a look at it and see.
Right, thank you. Okay, and that I think is brings us to the date of our next meeting, which is the 25th of April.
Peter,
yes.
There were 2 letters that you thought might be of interest. Did Dave send them out to us? I can't go back to it because I can't do this stuff, but it was 2 letters.
Remind me.
I sent an email around last Thursday.
That's the one.
Thursday.
Right.
Yeah, and there was 2 items attached. One was free teaching and learning about Ramadan and Eid CPD session, which is coming up in March, I think. And the other one was a national Sacre webinar which is coming up later on this month. So that the details were attached to those emails.
Okay, that's something.
Yeah, only just to remind people that.
It just shows that that's something I have missed. I'm sorry, and I should not have missed. I'm obviously
we will meet there virtually.
Right. So date of next meeting is the 25th of April, again at 10 o'clock, and whether we are still virtual at that stage remains to be seen. But meanwhile, thank you very much, everybody, for attending this morning's meeting and taking part in it. And I look forward to seeing you again before too long. And I hope that all of you managed to keep work. Sorry, Kathleen, you're wishing to say
something? It was only just as regards the next meeting, if we're doing face-to-face, is there any possibility of looking at a blended approach?
I'll have to discuss that with Dave and see whether that's something that's possible, but I've
had 1-2 meetings now.
We'll keep you keep you appropriately informed.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not ready to do face-to-face yet.
Okay.
I keep myself safe.
I think I would like to think that everybody will be able to stay safe. Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry, Ben.
Yeah, can I just follow on from Kathleen and think I totally agree in a blended approach, because I'm the other end of the spectrum and I would much prefer to meet face to face than online. I go to church with 100 people. I'm in a school with 1,000 people. So for me, I would rather meet in person, but I totally understand Kathleen's position. So I think blended would be excellent.
Thank you very much, Ben. Okay. Any other comments?
Ben.
Right. And for those of you who've been able to join us, like Francis this morning, welcome back, Francis, to our gathering. Yes, I wish you all well and look forward to seeing you again in a couple of months. Oh, right. Okay, Alan, thank you.